Hey, listen, man. Listen, man. All right, first thing first. Chelsea, definitely well deserved Club World Cup champions. And to be honest with you, I am shocked. I spoke about how they were aggressive in the press, how they wanted to be all over Real Madrid in terms of what they were trying to achieve. A lot of 2v1s on the wing, so much double marking and spaces. And then in this, Chelsea just negated every single thing that PSG threw at them. I don't think PSG deserve one goal in this game. Maybe slightly. But I don't think they deserve one goal. And I'm looking at it and I'm saying, like, this can't be the PSG that would just like rave and saying that they're the best team in the world. Well, the best team in the world were absolutely dominated from start of the game to the ending of the game. So we're gonna get through some points that I think are valid and as to why, what happened in the game, really, because I am just as flabbergasted as you are. But listen, all kudos to Chelsea and how the game plan from start to finish was just absolutely perfect. Maresca had the game plan, told the players what to do when out of possession and when in possession, and it worked to a T. So I have to give Chelsea so much props. Defensively, they were amazing, organized behind the ball. Sometimes it switched to a 4-4-2, sometimes it switched to a 5-3-2. But I think the most important thing that Chelsea did, that Real Madrid didn't do in the semi-final, was to show effort, a lot of effort. And the effort starting with their main player in Cole Palmer. And listen, man, Cole Palmer reminded us why he's one of the best players in the world. Cole Palmer reminds us that he needs to be talked about in the conversation like the Lamine Yamals and the Salahs and the Dembeles, right? And the Dues and all of them. And the verse that's coming up. Cole Palmer and the Sakas. And Cole Palmer reminded us that this performance is just a start of what, well, it's just a reminder of what he's always been doing for the past 2 seasons. And listen, it was the Cole Palmer day, and he was absolutely outstanding. And this team in Chelsea reminded us they need to be in the conversation as one of the title challengers for Liverpool if they want to win the Premier League. They reminded us as to what might happen in the Champions League if you write them off. And I'm going to say this right now. I can safely say that I will have Chelsea as a dark horse in the Champions League to win the Champions League. They have the pedigree. They have the winners. They won the Conference League. Now they're the world champions. And, you know, they are about to embark on another journey of trying to win the Premier League and also trying to win the Champions League. So it has been a step in the right direction. Yes, we can criticize as to the transfers and some of the transfers not paying off, but the quality on display that we saw today reminded us as to why Chelsea should be in the conversation. So let's start with the lineups. Really, Chelsea, which was I thought was a very interesting lineup in having Reece James beside Caicedo in a 4-2-3-1, and then pushing Enzo Fernandez further up and having Palmer and Neto out wide, and then PSG having their regular starters, and I think it was only Paco that was out, but everyone else was in the same lineup as usual. And I thought the game plan from Maresca was that what we're going to do is that we're going to concede possession, but while we're in possession, we're going to make use of what we have and try to thread as much ball forward as possible. One of the first points and main points that I said our state is Chelsea defended very aggressively. Chelsea did not give PSG enough time on the ball to know how they wanted to dictate the pace, to who they wanted to pass the ball to who the person that wanted to come into space, and who was coming into space like a Dembele or a Due. What they did was that they tried to form a barrier in a 5-3-2 so that any space that you thought you had before isn't there. So I thought how they pressed and how off the ball movement for Chelsea in terms of where to be when players are moving, I thought was absolutely sensational. And it shows what the game plan was for Enzo Maresca. And I thought PSG really into this game just didn't show that kind of effort in terms of trying to create chances. I thought they looked tired. And it's not an excuse for PSG, but I thought they were a bit wayward. I thought they lacked energy. I thought how they wanted to kind of push the ball, that energy and that kind of cutting edge wasn't there. And it's again, it's not because of maybe tiredness, but I thought Chelsea's game plan was to kind of disrupt PSG's game plan into what they were trying to do. So every time that PSG would pull together some string, it would be a Chelsea person there that may commit a little foul here, like just to kind of disrupt the pattern of play, and so that they would have to start all over again. So I thought the game plan from Chelsea, from Maresca, was just to sit tight behind the ball, men behind the ball, hit on the counter, but when in possession, ensure that you find balls, fly balls in from behind. And I thought that João Pedro, who was the Robin to Cole Palmer, who was the Batman, was absolutely fantastic. He found pockets of spaces, always threading balls in behind, always running behind, giving Marquinhos problems, and always finding balls behind Nuno Mendes, who I thought had I'm not going to say terrible game, but by his standards, a bad game. He would find a ball in if the wing backs or the full backs for PSG wanted to push forward in, like, he would fire a ball behind there when having the chance. And then because Chelsea have those kinds of players that are able to distribute balls like at goal, hit vertically, long passes like Enzo Fernandez, like a Cole Palmer, like a Reece James, of those ilk, even Gusto at times, and probably Cucurella when it was needed. But I thought that game plan to hit balls in behind when PSG were trying to trap back, when they lost possession, hit them immediately on the counter. And I thought that worked perfectly. So I thought defensively, PSG were good. Offensively, Chelsea were sensational and they were clinical. Listen, man, the first goal from Cole Palmer is, like you're playing in the schoolyard, you're playing like a scrimmage with the brethren, and they're like, yo, we need to, you have a person on the team, on your team or the opposition team, and they feel like, it's just so cool and chill that they make football look easy. That was Cole Palmer today. His first goal was that, like, he made the fake and then, made the defender kind of budge and drop and then just pass it in. It's like literally like a schoolyard kind of football game. Crazy finish. The second goal, Palmer again. Oh my gosh, it was a dummy. I think it was Gusto who was doing that outside run. Kind of fake it. Marquinhos jump, drop. Then I think it was Beraldo that was right there. Fake him fall, and then just clinical pass it in. Listen, that 10-minute stretch for Chelsea was absolutely clinical and sensational. It was the perfect kind of game, if you're a Chelsea fan, that when you have your chance, because of course football is a game of chances, but also in terms of momentum. And Chelsea, when they had that momentum, was absolutely pivot, great, sensational, clinical. I can't find the adjectives, but they were absolutely perfect. The game plan worked perfectly. And when you have a player like Cole Palmer, who is able to pull strings like the puppeteer or the puppet master that he is, it makes the game so much easier for everyone else to be where they're supposed to be. And then giving that ball to João Pedro for the third goal, and João Pedro with a lovely dink over the top, beating Donnarumma. Beautiful goal. Reminds us again as to who they are, who Chelsea are. I didn't have them winning. I had the game PSG winning 3-1, maybe 4-1, based on how they were playing Real Madrid. Chelsea was like, nah, them way there. But really, was a wonderful game. It was a beautiful game. Beautiful goals from Chelsea into how they took their chances. How they went after taking their chances, what to do and again, it's out of possession. Because PSG is a team that presses intensely, but pressing in a way, man-marking players. But if you're good enough, you're able to bypass it. And I thought multiple times there was a big gap in the middle of the field where the defense line wasn't covering the midfield and the forward line. So there was a big, huge space that Chelsea constantly exploited. Gusto constantly exploited and did literally what PSG did to Real Madrid. Gareth Bale said in the halftime show that PSG were being PSG'd by Chelsea. Almost literally the same game plan. And Luis Enrique said that in the pre-match, in the press conference a couple of days ago, that PSG and Chelsea play in a similar way. And you literally saw that because Gusto was constantly bombing down that right side and double teaming Nuno Mendes every single time. Every single moment that Gusto got a chance to run forward, he was taking it. Nuno Mendes had to run and try to support. Kvaratskhelia, I thought, looked horrible today. He was absolutely horrible. And I thought maybe the changes should have rang in earlier for PSG with Luis Enrique and probably getting Barcola early. But listen, man, it was one of those games that you just have to like be there to understand and even watch it to understand the magnitude of that win. Because really have a fact, and this is my second point, the really have a fact, we literally crowned PSG as the best team in the world. I did that. I will put my hands up and say I did that. I crowned them as the best team in the world because they showed the pedigree. They beat Arsenal, they beat Liverpool, they beat Real Madrid, they beat Aston Villa, they beat Inter Milan 5-0, they beat Bayern, they beat Atletico Madrid, and so on and so forth. So I'm saying, we're all saying like, all right, this could be the next dynasty. And Chelsea's like, nah, this ain't it, bro. They ain't the next dynasty, bro. And you saw the game plan. You saw what Chelsea did. And Chelsea, as someone would say, they brought them down to Christian feelings. They humbled them and gave them the pie and said, guess what? Hold that. Here's your humble pie. 3-0 in the face, and could have been more because truly it should have been like 4 or 5. But I thought Chelsea kind of took their foot off of the gas, which I mean fair to them because, you know, you're up 3-0. So automatically you kind of revert into like your shape, want to get condensed and compact as much as you can. But man, crowning PSG had reality brought back to them, crashing harsh. And it's a hard reality because that's how football is. It's very dynamic. And I think now PSG understands that if you want to be one of the best team and continue to be the best team, you're going to have to churn out performances like what you did against the other teams, like the Madrids and the Liverpools and Arsenal. You have to do that week in, week out, almost every final. And that's how we are able to crown like a Manchester City as the best team in the world because they constantly were churning out performances. That's how we're able to crown it as the best club ever because every final they're able to churn out performances. And so it's not a dent, it doesn't, I'm not going to say it's not a huge impact on what we're going to view the Champions League like. I still think that PSG is the best team in the world, but I think what Chelsea has done, it shows how human PSG are and it humanized them a lot, a whole lot. And I thought how PSG at the end of the game, which is my third point, the sportsman-like conduct, as we would say in the NFL, it was horrible. And what how PSG reacted to being a loser, very sore loser. We can't say they did the right thing or not. It's up to you. It's subjective. I thought it was wrong. João Neves, what he did to Cucurella, pulling his hair back, got a red card, and then at the end of the game, Luis Enrique, who is in charge of those men, pulling and pushing João Pedro. I will say that. I don't know what was said, what João Pedro said to him, but his reaction to that wasn't that of a manager who took the loss very well. And no person should. But his reaction to put hands on someone, that's not tolerated at any point in time. At the end of the game, tempers may flare, persons may be upset, words will be exchanged, very fiery words will be exchanged. But at the end of the day, you have to be respectful. You have to conduct yourselves as, as gentlemen, even though you're passionate about the game. But I thought how PSG at the end of the game, what they did was just really unnecessary. And it shows kind of the mentality as to where they are. Not in a bad way, because again, you lost and, you're high. Your emotions are very high. You went into a final, first inaugural big Club World Cup championship like that, and to lose how you did. I mean, your feelings would be hurt, and that's the truth. But I thought today, man, Cole Palmer was that. He reminded us who he is and who he has always been. And shout out to Enzo Maresca for leading these men into being champions, world champions, literally world champions. And they deserved it. They deserved it. They played wonderful football from start to finish. Questions will be asked of PSG and what happens after. But I think what Chelsea will do is take this as a huge step in the right direction. And I think what this will probably do as well is where the quality of the team is. And I think one thing that I believe will happen is that Chelsea will get rid of some of the players. I think Nicholas Jackson will be transferred out this season. I don't see him starting. I don't see where he fits into the mold of what Chelsea needs to do and where they're going. I thought Joe Pedro, oh my gosh. I say to my brethren that, listen, there are players, I said that Mateus Cunha reminds me of a Bobby Firmino. He's not like Bobby Firmino. I said like they're like the sons, like Bobby Firmino's sons. And he was saying like, and I was like, really, Joe Pedro? He's like, yeah, his kind of play, his pressing, his style of play, how he runs, how he plays. It's not literally how Roberto Firmino used to play, but it's kind of that silk or ilk where he kind of positions himself as that kind of flair, kind of pressing, kinds of technical ability. It reminds me a little bit of Roberto Firmino. But I thought he was absolutely wonderful. And defensively, if Chelsea can perform like this week in, week out, in the Champions League and in the league and in cup competitions as well, Chelsea can be, I can definitely say they're one of the best teams in the world to compete and win a Champions League or a Premier League if they're able to do so consistently. And I think they are maturing right before our eyes, which is absolutely wonderful to see. And I can't wait to see what the Premier League is going to be like because Liverpool has their work cut out. Manchester City are coming back. Arsenal have just strengthened. And Chelsea has shown that they want to be around the conversation of being not only the top four, but competing for the Premier League. So, guys, let me know in the comments what you think. Like, subscribe, and share. Thank you for those who are subscribed. But let's see if we can get to 200 subscribers. Until next time, guys, peace.